Welcome to Jobs for the Future Horizons Virtual Summit. My name is Rosye Cloud, president of Strata 9 and long-standing supporter of the College Promise movement. The College Promise movement has experienced exponential growth in the last 5 years, with over 369 programs actively providing paid tuition and supportive services to hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of students across the country. Our session will begin momentarily, and you will be joined by the CEO of both College Promise, Martha Kanter, and Bob Ballard, CEO of Scholarship America. Thank you. My name is Rosye Cloud, and I have the honor today of introducing two leaders that are championing college and career opportunities for students across the country. As many of you know, the nation has navigated one of the most complex economic and public health crises of our generation. As we work together as a country to regain a state of normal, Americans are faced with significant challenges. The middle class remains elusive for far too many Americans, as do pathways for prosperity. Education remains a critical component to economic prosperity, and programs like College Promise and Scholarship America are working together across their vast networks and caring partners to make sure that we gain progress across the country. Today, we're going to have a deeper dive into conversations with regards to college and careers opportunities under the construct of the Promise movement and discuss its potential impact on a robust American economy. We are fortunate today to have Martha Kanter, CEO of College Promise, and Bob Ballard, CEO of Scholarship America. Thank you both for being here today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Great to be here.
I'd like to jump right in, Martha, and open up with a little bit about your vision and background. Martha, what led you to build College Promise over the last 5 years as one of the fastest growing initiatives across the country when it comes to paid for education and supportive services? Could you tell us a little bit about how that vision was crafted for you and how you've been able to advance it?
Sure, happy to do that. I'm thrilled to be here, and thanks to Jobs for the Future for inviting us to share our perspectives with you. Scholarship America and College Promise share this commitment to students. And Bob will talk about that, I know, in this conversation. And for me, having pretty much worked all my life while I got my education, kept getting an education, whether I was teaching or learning from others in my jobs, I really see that students are not going to be well served unless we figure out how they can work and learn at the same time. And so for me, it's been first and foremost about students. At College Promise, we support 369 local and state Promise programs around the country. Some of you have heard about Kalamazoo or Tennessee that are statewide. Others might have heard about Long Beach, or even back on the East Coast, the Boston Bridge. That's our new Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, was the architect of the Boston Bridge. And what we do at College Promise is our vision is to give students the best possible education we can, so they can work, so they can learn, and so that ultimately they can be prepared for success throughout their lives. We want them to have jobs with a family sustaining wage, but my passion is always as well to have an equivalent call to service, so our students can exemplify the mindsets of our World War II and World War I veterans and volunteers, like my dad, who was an Army captain, and my mother, who made parachutes for service members in World War II. So it's kind of like service, learning, and working. Can we put all this together to give our students the very best shot at a fair and equitable future, because they deserve that?
Thank you, Martha. And Bob, I've had the pleasure of learning about Scholarship America through partnerships with College Promise. There seems to be such a strong collaboration between partners across the country that are interested in serving America's learners, American students across the country. I'm so glad you're here. We know by and large, Scholarship America is a nationally well-respected organization that has provided over $1 billion of scholarship assistance to students across the country. I wonder if you would be willing to share with us a little bit about your reflections at Scholarship America and how you see some of your time there to be very complementary to what the country is thinking about right now with regards to promise.
Thank you, Rosie. It's wonderful to be here, and I'd like to add my thanks to Martha's, to Jobs for the Future for having us this day. And it's always a pleasure to be on a panel with Martha. She just is a wealth of information and just an inspiration every time I hear her speak. Scholarship America and College Promise. I have been in the role of CEO for about 5.5 years, coming up on 6 years. My very first day as CEO was the very first National Advisory Board meeting of the College Promise Initiative at the time. So my history with this organization, at least in the current role, overlaps directly with College Promise. And one thing that Martha is too modest to tell you is that back in the summer or fall of 2015, when this all began, there were 30 College Promise programs across the country. Today, there are over 350 and still counting. And I think that speaks to not only the need, but the interest and the desire to reach out and help students. As Martha said, College Promise is about the student. Scholarship America's mission is centered and began over 60 years ago in 1958, serving students. We started as a single location in Fall River, Massachusetts, setting up a community scholarship program, a revolutionary idea at its time. We now have over 450 chapters in 30 states, as well as over 1,000, actually 1,400 scholarship partners that we work with, all for the one same purpose, and that is to help students receive the dollars they need in order to gain access and be successful in higher education. For me, the whole idea of being in the role that I'm in is one that has gradually happened over time. When I graduated from college, I went into the Navy for about 6 years and chose to leave the Navy and start a career. And from that point in time, I have worked somewhere within either education, finance, or student supports for about 40 years. And we all sort of reach that point where you look back and it seems like, how did I get here? And it seems like only yesterday, but it's been a long time. But throughout all of that, it started first for me as volunteer activity. That chapter network that I talked about, Dollars for Scholars is the name, Community Scholarship Programs. I joined that in Indiana where I was living at the time. That was 20 years ago. I then was asked to join the board of Scholarship America and then became its CEO. So for me, what was really an avocation, something that I was interested and passionate about, became my vocation. And the only comment I have about that is that I should have done it 20 years ago. It's been wonderful, it's been amazing, and as I said, Martha is an inspiration. It is an idea that started as opening the door and lowering the barrier for students to attend community college. And it's grown well beyond that. And we see that both in the national dialogue, in the administration's policies, and also I think in the desire to open that door, lower the barriers, and start to work on the other issues out there that I know we'll probably talk about later in this dialogue about equity and social justice and making a level playing field for every student, regardless of where they started, where they come from, but more importantly, the commonality of where they're going, and that's to a better future.
Before we continue, you mentioned 1,400 different partners that are sponsoring scholarships, and many of them are large companies, right? They're employers that are vested in advancing their own, their mission and adding value and purpose, but they have seen that an investment in an educated workforce is important. They have prioritized that. There's sometimes a confusion that promise initiatives or these types of emphasis are only about individuals right? A small portion of, but it seems that, Scholarship America and your partners understand this is actually good for the economy. This is good for business. Could you talk a little bit about your partners and their commitment to this work?
Sure. So of the 1,400, I would say approximately 70% of that for that number, they are corporations, businesses of varying sizes, to Fortune 500, all the way down to individual proprietary organizations, and they all share the same desire. Many of the programs that we support, help them design, and then later support, have to do with employee scholarship programs and children of employees. So it's not just the worker or the staff member that they're trying to help, which is great and is welcome, but it's also their families. And we all know that once it extends to the next generation, it will go to the next, and so on and so on. And that's how you break the cycle. But they see both the opportunity to invest in their employees and their employee families, because that creates a better workforce. It also attracts other workers to the task to come to a corporation because of the work that they can do and the living they can make, but also the way in which they can continue to learn and advance and grow. And it's through programs like scholarship programs and tuition assistance, which is another portion of what we work in, that it opens that door. And I think it's a great example to set for other organizations, other corporations to follow, because it does add to the workforce. It creates a pipeline not only for that organization, but for that community. And it just, it spreads exponentially.
Given what we've been talking about today with regards to the structural advancements, the heightened attention and commitment to leveling the playing field, the overwhelming support for improving the talent pipeline across the United States, the conversations, the College Promise continues to have across the country to better reflect and understand the needs of all of our students across the country, across demographics, and to help heighten their agency and voice, right? Can you give me your take on why is this movement, why is free college such a lightning rod? When it seems that across the aisle, across the country, people understand that education changes the trajectory of Americans' lives.
It's interesting because I think the reaction when somebody hears free college is not on college, it's on free, which is the wrong emphasis and is the wrong place to go. And everybody is, we all know the phrases, we all know the words. There's no free lunch, nothing is free, and on and on and on. And the point is not on free. The point is making college accessible and available for all those who seek it. And there isn't a single person who should not be seeking it in some way, shape, or form, because it is the way to the better future. And we all know that it elevates not only the individual, but everybody associated with that individual, whether it's family, community, country, and beyond. So from my perspective, I think we need to accept the fact that it's not free, but the person it should be free to is the one that we are trying to help. And that's really where the emphasis needs to be. We'll figure out how to pay for it. And it's like anything else. If we commit ourselves to an outcome and we believe it is the right thing to do, there is a way, there is a process. It may take a little bit, but if we don't give up, we're going to find a solution. If we truly believe that the solution is worth working on, negotiating, compromising, and achieving. And I think that it's an absolute given, foregone conclusion that higher education at whatever level, and people also hear college and they automatically assume or infer it's 4 years. It's not. It's 2 years. It's a certificate. It's a qualification. It's anything that leads you to a career that can allow you to pay your way, earn a living, raise a family, and contribute to society. That's what we all want. We all want to give back in some way, shape, or form. So let's focus on college in that broader definition and work on how do we make it available free to the individual that is pursuing it.
So Bob, your point of this is, the vast majority of jobs that are part of the current recovery have a positive education requirement, higher education requirement, right? And so as societies advance, as knowledge economies advance, the idea that some level of education beyond high school is necessary is starting to become pretty universally accepted, especially by employers, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So, so when you couple that, I hear your comment about free, because free has a lot, we all know nothing's free. I think, even teenagers today understand nothing is free, but in the context of College Promise, we're pretty much saying paid for, right? Free equals paid for. And the term free is used primarily because most of the students that we're trying to connect to won't pay attention, don't believe it's for them. They don't even want to get their hopes up, but the word free gives them almost permission to pause and say, well, maybe this is something I should think about. But I think what you're also saying is we've got to be careful about our language depending on the audience, right? And that there's still a lot of confusion around what does it mean when you talk about promise, and what are the benefits to society and to employers and the economy at large, and then why is the word free such a powerful tool when trying to connect to learners across the country that frankly just don't see their hopefulness has been extinguished with regards to college being for them. Martha, we've had conversations about the 770,000 students that did not return to college this spring. Those numbers are in. There's been now recent reports about these are college students. This is not even counting the number of K through 12 students that have navigated a virtual environment during the pandemic. How can Promise play a role in bringing these students back? How can we work with organizations like Scholarship America, different types of nonprofits that are advancing this work? Because it seems to me this is a national security issue. We are in fact having to mobilize to make gains where we have hundreds, if not millions, of Americans who have been negatively impacted and potentially have delayed their education or put their pathway into a career on pause.
So I'm going to take a lesson from last Wednesday's conversation that I had with Laverne Srinivasan and Peter Taylor. They are philanthropists. Bob serves on the College Promise National Advisory Board with Laverne Srinivasan. They've been with us since 2015. We're in year 6. And so I'm just going to share sort of this 6-point ways that community, and this is what Laverne talks about, it's not just education or business or nonprofits or labor or the students and families themselves or government. We have to join all these partners in what I call a cross-sector collaborative coalition, whatever you want to call it, community committed leadership talent that is going to let our students really thrive. And so what do we do? Number one, understand who our students are. We have tremendously diverse communities across the country, and students need different types of supports. So a student in rural America, transportation may be a higher need because they don't have a bus, or the bus comes every 3 hours, or they don't have a bus at all. Students with disabilities, do they have the accessible technologies? Because in West Virginia, in the mountain rural areas, they may not have high-speed broadband. How can you learn AutoCAD without high-speed broadband? How can it's just really a tragedy. We have to fix this. Nobody knows what the students need better than themselves. And a lot of times we don't ask them, we don't study them enough, or we don't use the research to say, the students need these kinds of things. And that's why we're so thrilled with the ecosystem reports, because we've had students leading the way on these reports to say, yes, if I'm a student who is in foster care or aged out of, I need a place to live. I need food. I need my education and my work experiences. We've got to have 2-generational conversations much earlier. I actually call it tri-gen. We have many, many young families with children who can't get access to college and career advice or the pathways that I talked about. And so when we tackle the social mobility challenges with a 2 or a 3 generation approach, we're going to dramatically increase success. And, I was thrilled to graduate a father, a son, and a grandson in one graduating class when I was president. And this was a 3-gen approach where they were taking care of each other as a family, but they were all getting their education and moving on. And I can tell you hundreds of stories. And that's why, Rosye, I'm thrilled that we've got this, because we will campaign moving forward, because those student stories of what those students need is essential. Third, and as important, paid internships and jobs that are education committed. So, it used to be 20, 30 years ago where training was provided in large measure by companies all the time, and all that rescinded. And, talk to Tony Carnevale about, how can we get students the paid internships and the paid jobs that are going to give them the family sustaining wages. Students from low income communities, they can't go to school without a job, and nobody can afford to work for free. So while internships are critical, can't we give them a stipend that isn't going to mess up, their income? Can we give them, internships that are going to allow them to thrive? We've got unpaid internships for people that benefit the rich and privileged students. Can't we do this for all students? Give them a wage while they're doing their internships and getting those experiences. My fourth point, can we advocate for students who are more vulnerable, for students who are part of the equity gap? Can we use our voices across all these sectors to talk about systemic changes that we need? We need better systems in our schools to college. We need better relationships between 2-year, 4-year high schools, elementary schools, the childcare I talked about. We need better systems that align the nonprofits with business, with education, with government. I look to Buffalo, say yes, Buffalo, because, their director, he worked at the county. They understand how to map and marry various funding streams to make it better for students to get the supports they need. We've got to make it easier for employers. That's my 5th point. So they can hire and retain the students they want. Hopefully, they will be hiring and retaining 1st-generation students. They will look for students like 1st gen who may not have access to the life skills and the mentors to get that door into the company. So we've got to work to close those gaps and take some risks on these students. There's some new writings about this. Maybe looking in non-traditional ways for students who could really benefit, who have the motivation and the skills for success. And right now, employers across the country are being asked to take this on and look to these students that will most benefit. We've got to do a much better job in this new century to connect education at all levels to economic opportunity in ways that are most relevant to our students. So, for example, exposing elementary and middle school students to jobs that they might be excited about. We've got to stop working in our silos. We've got to integrate working and learning and service in much better ways. And we've got to do a better job with supports, advising, counseling, data sharing, giving students the information they need so that they can access college and career resources throughout their lives. And those resources have got to be attuned to the job market of today and tomorrow, because we know we're in a knowledge economy. So that's my last point. And, if we could do all these things, this is what we all want. It's not College Promise, it's not Scholarship America in silos. It's all of us trying to get this done for the next generation and the next and the next.
Thank you, Martha. Bob, I wonder if you could speak to the audience here today. You know, Martha's given some very good practical advice and where she sees some of the biggest opportunities for us to collaborate. But I'd love your voice here in your advice to policymakers, advocates, employers, career counselors, the various folks that are listening, you know, today. What would be your message to them?
It occurs to me that we all sort of, from every single position that we sit in, the world looks a little bit different. It looks similar, but not the same. And I just want to talk a little bit about scholarships in response to your question. And the word scholarship, everybody has a notion as to what it is, what it should be, and probably more appropriately, what it has been. And that's the status quo. And by and large, people think it's for those who have done academically very well in high school. And there are many students who think because I don't have this grade point average or I didn't get this test score, the scholarships aren't for me. And by connection, neither is higher education or college. And we need to break down that notion because nothing could be farther from the truth. The fact is that scholarships are for anyone. And the fact of the matter is that more scholarships go unawarded because students don't seek them or they try to find them and they can't. It's the way that I refer to it is it's a treasure hunt. We give clues and we send them on their way. We wish them well. And some of them are successful and some of them are not. And this goes back to Martha's point about silos, is that there is a process that you follow that starts far sooner than I think people realize to get to college. It starts in grade school. It starts even sooner than that as an aspirational goal. But there are steps you need to follow. And what we need to do is make those steps easier, more transparent, and more continuous. And I'll give you just one quick example. Everybody fills out, who's going to go to higher education, fills out an application. And then they fill out another application to look for a scholarship. There is a conversation we're having with an organization that basically provides college applications for multiple colleges and universities, called the Common Application or the Common App. We provide multiple scholarships to all different types of individuals across our 1,400 partners. What we are doing is, because the information is almost the same, very close to the same, we're sharing that information one to the other. And rather than having the student look for the scholarship dollars that we hold, we know where the money is. We're holding it. We are looking to find the students. So we turn the paradigm around. Don't send them on a treasure hunt. Contact them and tell them this is a scholarship for which you are qualified based on the information we've received. And let's shorten that turnaround. And let's make it more successful. And let's get more scholarships out the door, because that is the way to get into college and to be successful. The other thing is the way in which we have gone about selecting scholarships. We are looking at it now through that equity imperative lens. We have to. And it's the fact whether it's academic requirements or financial need declarations, or many scholarships have recommenders. All of those need to have review because it has been the way we've done it. And there are inequities we know in that process. They need to be changed. So we're encouraging our scholarship providers. I'm doing it not only through Scholarship America, but also through the National Scholarship Provider Association, the collective of scholarship providers, to basically take a look at this and kick the tires and be honest with ourselves as to what is truly a barrier and is it truly accomplishing what we want to accomplish, and that is getting dollars in the hands of those who are seeking higher education. One overriding comment that I would have with respect to this whole topic is that oftentimes we are individually and collectively mobilized by what we perceive and really believe to be the enormity of the task. And we need to show the fortitude, the commitment, and the discipline to begin, to start the process. It may take us exactly where we thought it would, or it may take us to a different position, but it's all directionally in the support of better and good. And the fact is that students need this type of help. They need this type of support, and we're not going to get there unless we all commit to making it better and advancing the cause that we all so feel so passionately about.
Well, that's fantastic, and you're taking action on truly redesigning and changing the way that these scholarships are communicated, branded, engaged, and I have to say, for those that are watching and joining us here today, you know, Scholarship 360 is the tagline on Twitter, on social platforms, where almost every day I get a message, or I see the message of a new scholarship that's available. And you're very clear about what are the eligibility criteria and how inclusive some of these are. And I think if we can build that, you know I've shared it with school board leaders and high school career counselors and college counselors. I think we need to get the word out so folks know about it. So I love what you've done with Scholarship 360, and definitely I think your comment about, you know, re-engineering the treasure hunt so that it is actually something that can be navigated, you know, very easily, but also it doesn't put off students. And I know Martha and I have traveled across the country, met with students. I spent a lot of time, whether it's reservations, talking to future leaders and high school students that are looking at college, or economically disadvantaged areas. And one of the biggest concerns is confusion about where to find opportunities. And you have young students and learners who are already battling with challenges about their own personal feelings of worthiness, and if college is the type of next step for them. But then when they have difficulties finding the resources, that adds an additional level of complexity to the treasure hunt, that the more we remove it, I think it just allows for a much higher likelihood of success. Well, Martha, Bob, I want to thank you today for your time, for your conversation. Obviously, you both are leaders. You're respected in this space, and College Promise, the Promise movement, could not have two better champions across the country. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you, Rosie. It's
Thank
been a
you.
joy.